This is a quick demonstration of how to use JupyterHub and GitHub to create reproducible research notebooks that are published online and can be easily shared and version tracked. Before we get started, you're going to need to have access to a JupyterHub and you're going to need a GitHub account. So to get started, we're going to set up a GitHub repository. To do this, we'll navigate over to github.com. Once you're logged in, you should see something like this. Up at the top right, create new repository. This is going to give us a form to fill out. We're going to give it a repository name. I'm just going to call it my project for now. And a little description. We can set the visibility. I'm going to leave it to public, which means anyone can see my code. We're not going to use a template today. I am going to add a README. I'm going to add a Python style gitignore. We're going to be using Python here. And I'm going to add the very permissive MIT license so that anyone can reuse my code. Alright, hit create repository and it will take us to the project repo. So this is a link that you can share with anyone. It will show people your code. Here we've got a list of files. We can click on one of those and view what's in it. We can also edit it on the web here. But what we're going to be doing is editing from the JupyterHub server. Now that our GitHub repository is set up, we want to connect that repository with our JupyterHub server. So, to do this, we're going to set up a key pair so that the JupyterHub can authenticate with GitHub. Let's navigate over to our JupyterHub server. We should see something like this, and under the Other section, we want to open a terminal. This opens a bash terminal where we can use bash commands and run other programs on the JupyterHub server. I'm going to use the ls command to see what is in the .ssh directory. What we can see is that there are no key pairs in here, we just have these known host files. I'm going to use the program sshkeygen to create a key pair of type ed25519, and I'm going to set a contact email address. I'm going to just hit enter to use the defaults here, no passphrase, default location. Now if I use the up arrow, I can reuse my previous command to list what's in the SSH directory. And we can see that we now have two files, a private key and the .pub is the public key that we're going to share with GitHub. So I'm going to concatenate the contents of my public key using the cat program. So we can see what is in that file. This is everything that's in that file. I'm going to copy that and navigate back over to GitHub where we will paste that in. So on GitHub, in the top right, we will open your account, and then under the settings, on the left there is SSH and GPG keys. And top right we will click new SSH key. Now in the key area I'm going to paste what I copied from my public key file, and I'm going to give this a title. I'm going to say it's my JupyterHub key from 2025. Add SSH key. Now we may need to authenticate using our GitHub app, depending on if you have two-factor authentication set up. Okay, and now down at the bottom here we can see I've got my new SSH key set up, connecting my JupyterHub server and GitHub. Now that we have our key pair authentication set up between JupyterHub and GitHub, we're going to clone our repository to JupyterHub. So let's navigate over to our JupyterHub, and we're going to use the command git clone. And then we need our link to our repository. So let's jump back over to github.com and find our project repository page. In this case, it's github.com/myusername/myprojectname. Yours should be similar. Once you're there, you can use the green code button and find the SSH link. We're going to copy that, go back over to our JupyterHub, and paste it in. Now I'll hit enter, and there we go. The code has been copied over to the JupyterHub. You can see the new folder in the file browser over here. We can go in there and see all the files. We can also change directory into that location. As I'm doing change directory, I'm starting to type, and then I hit tab to see what might complete, and it's able to guess that I'm trying to go into my project just from the M, because I don't have any other folders starting with M. So change directory into my project, and I can ls the files there. So we can see our license and our README file. We have successfully cloned our repository to JupyterHub. Now that we have cloned our repository, we're ready to use Git to add files and create save points called commits. Before we do this, we have to do a little bit of setup with Git to tell it who we are. So I'm going to use the git config command with the global flag. I'm going to set user email to my email address. And I'm going to do git config global user.name to my name. Okay, so now we can do a git status to see what's going on with our repository. We can see we're up to date with the GitHub repository called origin main, and we have nothing to commit. There are no changes compared to what we have on GitHub. Now we are ready to create our first research notebook. Over in the JupyterHub server, we can see if we open a new tab, and so we have a new launcher, and under notebook we click Python 3, and this creates a new IPy notebook file with the Python kernel. What this means is that we can put Python code in one of these code cells and hit run to run the code on the JupyterHub server. Now let's save this with a little bit more of a descriptive name. And we will hop back over to our terminal and do git status one more time. Now we can see that we have an untracked file. This new IPy notebook file is not being tracked. So I want to add that to my repository using the git add command. Git add my first notebook.ipynotebook. And once again, a git status. We can see that the file has been added, but there is no commit. This means that there is not a save point that has been created yet. Git is ready to save this file, but we need to use the git commit command to actually create the save point. Every commit should have a message, and that message can be whatever you like. It should be descriptive of what has changed since your last commit. So in this case, I added a new notebook. Okay, so now Git status will show you that we are one ahead of the origin main, which is our GitHub repository. And we use git push to publish those to GitHub. So let's do a git push. And now if we go over to my project on GitHub and do a refresh on the page, we will now see in our list of files my first notebook.ipy notebook. And if we open that file, GitHub has a nice display for IPy notebook files. We can see our code cells and we can see the outputs. Okay, so now let's create and use a .py Python file from our research notebook. This will help us keep our code nice and clean. So let's go over to our JupyterHub server, open a new launcher, and under Other, I'm going to press Python file. Now this creates a new .py file. And in this file, I'm going to define a function which I will call greet. And I'm going to use the parameter name. And in this function, I'm just going to print hello, and then whatever name is given to the function. Okay, and I'm going to call this greet. Now, if we hop back over to our notebook, we can use the import command to import from that file and use the function. We will send it name is Tyler. Alright, Control Enter runs it and we see hello Tyler. There's actually two ways you can import here. One is to use the module style, import greet, greet.greet. The other is from greet, import greet. So from our greet file, we are importing the greet function, and then we can just do greet a second time. Great. Now we can create Python files to organize our code, run them from our research notebooks. Next up, we want to talk about how to use Python packages. So the package I'm going to demonstrate today is called NumPy. NumPy is a package for working with arrays, and it's very useful for scientific and numeric calculations. So I'm going to insert a new code cell, and in this I'm going to write some code. I'm going to import NumPy, and I'm going to create a 2D array of random numbers using the numpy.random.rand function. This takes, I'm going to give two arguments, the size of the 2D array. So this is a 3x4 array, and I'm going to print that float array. Now if NumPy is already installed, this will work just fine. But if we've not installed NumPy yet, we need to install it. The way to do that I'm recommending is to add a code cell here where we do something special using this exclamation point. This will allow us to run bash commands from our research notebook. So we're going to run the bash program pip install numpy. So it's saying we're already installed. If you're running this for the first time or your administrator has not set up NumPy on your JupyterHub, then it will need to install here. But we're already all set. So now let's run this code and we can see there's our random array. So I'm going to hop over to our bash console again, do a git status, and we can see we've got some changes. I modified the research notebook and I created this greet.python file in the previous step. So I'm going to git add both of these files, and then I'm going to git commit with the commit message, add greet function, and add numpy usage. Alright, so we have 2 changes and we're ahead by 1 commit. I will git push that commit to GitHub, and now everything should be published on GitHub, and I think we have a full workflow going. If you have any further questions about how to go from here or anything that needs clarification, please let me know.